Hello and welcome to another episode of The Coder Career with me, your host, Cameron Blackwood. Today's guest is Mike Davies. Mike is the co-founder and COO of the app Haystack, where you can look for the very best companies in the technology industry. Mike himself is originally a software engineer with a specialism in mobile development, so we have a bit of a chat about mobile. We also as well talk about how one can grow as a software engineer, the best strategies when it comes to looking for new jobs, and as well personal development. Before we do get started though, I do just want to quickly shout out my YouTube channel. You can find it under Cameron Blackwood or at Cameron Blackwood Code. I'm really trying to post more content on there that hopefully you will all find useful. And also as a bonus announcement, the podcast is temporarily going to be going back to a weekly schedule. I won't be able to keep this up forever, but I have a load of great episodes that have already been recorded, so I don't want to just sit on them for ages. I'd rather people get to hear them. So for the next couple of months, you can expect a new episode of The Coder Career every Monday, although this will go back to fortnightly eventually. Enjoy the show. The labour market as a whole is changing, and tech companies are always at the forefront of innovation. More and more companies are adopting a 4-day work week, so 32 hours at a full salary. Imagine what you could do with an extra day in your week. You could spend more time with your family, work on side projects, or take up a new hobby. And that's why I'm delighted to say that the Coder Career is brought to you by 4dayweek.io. Created by previous guest Phil McParlin, it's a job board where you can find the very best jobs that work a 32-hour work week. So what are you waiting for? Get that extra day in your week. Go to 4dayweek.io to find out more. Hey Mike, thanks so much for joining me. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks.
Good. And for listeners who haven't come across you or Haystack before, do you want to give a bit of a rundown about who you are and what Haystack does?
Yeah, sure. Hello everybody. I'm Mike. I'm one of the co-founders here at Haystack. I guess the official job title is Chief Operation Officer. Back in the day, I used to be a software engineer. Still do a little bit of coding, kind of here and there. But my role has sort of evolved over time. Kind of in a needs must type scenario. So what do we do here at Haystack? I guess the one-liner sort of elevator pitches. We're basically a data insights and careers marketplace built for techies by techies. It's one of the kind of age-old rhetorics that you hear pretty much across the board now, that basically tech recruitment is pretty much broken and kind of stuck in the dark ages a little bit. So our ultimate goal and ultimate mission is to basically fix that. What we wanted to create was basically a completely unbiased level playing field that really just allowed techies, and what I mean by techies is general tech professionals, so software engineers, DevOps engineers, QA testers, UX UI designers, to basically dive it headfirst into the tech scene and explore, uncover, discover cool, interesting opportunities without being constantly bombarded and pestered by recruitment agencies, but also free from the kind of boredom and never-ending scrolling that you find on the big job boards out there. That's kind of I guess a basic whistle-stop tour of Haystack.
Yeah, it's a really interesting proposition. I think when we first got chatting about it, I think you described it as like a portal, almost like how when someone looks for a house, they might look at Rightmove or Zoopla. You want to be kind of like that for the tech job market, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And we love it when we see users using Haystack in that way. I think one of the biggest things is we don't just see it for people who are actively looking right then and there. Nobody. Yeah, in today's market, I would say the vast majority of people are just kind of constantly sort of keeping an eye on things, just seeing what's out there. And that's really where our sweet spot is, I would say. So it's built for people who are currently in work and just kind of want to use us to keep their finger on the pulse. In the same way that you would, like you say, you use the right move analogy. And I often find it's quite cliche when businesses describe themselves like other companies, or there's always that old it's like Uber for X. Well, in a similar sort of sense, we're kind of like Rightmove, but for tech professionals. So in the same way that like you say, in the run up to buying a house, you use Rightmove constantly day in day out. But when you've actually bought a house and you just want to keep an eye on the housing market, you might use it irregularly, and that's absolutely fine. That's kind of their sweet spot. That's sort of where we sit, but for job seekers as well.
Yeah, I like the analogy, especially because it applies just so well to what you do. Because back even sort of 6 or 7 years ago, before we had any platform like yours, we would have to call up a recruiter, find out what jobs they've got on. Because in the UK, and the majority of listeners are in the UK, our industry is incredibly kind of hidden behind a recruitment curtain almost,
Mm.
and it's a very heavily recruited in the agency model. And I think we're moving away more into embedded talent solutions, but that could be a whole podcast in of itself. And
Yeah.
I think whilst I've worked with great recruiters, and I know a lot of great recruiters, and they still will have their use going forward, much like how estate agents aren't gone. Um, if you want to have a quick, good view at the market and see what companies are out there, and their proposition, it's so much easier than calling around 10 different recruiters and then having to go through a load of hoops to find out the company name and everything like that.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, I don't want to downplay recruiters because there are some really good ones out there. But there's in the same, I guess it's the same as any industry. A few bad eggs kind of can give an entire industry a bad name, I think. Um, but one of my biggest gripes, I would say, when I used recruiters as a software engineer was it was always just you could tell there was a few clients that they worked with, and even though they would claim to sort of find the best match for you or whatever it is, that best match just happened to be the person that was going to pay them the most. And it was kind of the list that was at the top of their little black book. Um, like I said, but for me as a dev, and I without kind of sounding big headed, and I think it's the case for a lot of developers and techies. that Our skill set is extremely in demand, and we kind of need to know our worth a little bit. Essentially, we do have pick of the litter. It's not like another profession where I don't know, people get inundated with applicants left, right, and center. In the tech space, if you're really qualified, like and you kind of know, your trade really well, you have that freedom of choice, which is kind of why we're seeing a lot of companies that are really investing in employer brand initiatives and things like it used to be. It used to be throwing a ping pong table and we'll try and get, and that's the routes to getting the best talent. Um, and everybody kind of thought, it's a bit quirky, but the reason that everybody was doing it is ultimately because they want the best developers and they want the best talent. So I think we as developers and tech professionals can use that to our advantage. You've got the tools to essentially survey the entire tech scene, and you can be super selective in that sense. So you can find a company that's building a product that you really really like and you're really super into, or maybe they've got a great mission that you feel like you can get behind. So that's the kind of thing that's what drove me when I was doing my job search. And I always felt like there wasn't really any tool out there to actually do that, other than randomly stumbling upon an article that was written about a company. I wanted to be able to find the companies that were driving really really mission driven or building cool products and had great culture behind it, and modern technologies as well.
Yeah, you can get a macro level fairly easily via like salary reports, that kind of thing. But that's actually not that useful when you're trying to drill down to your specific job search and the companies you're
Yeah,
going for. And
yeah,
that's why these solutions make sense. It's not just about the money as well, because there are websites like levels.fyi or XYZ, I can't remember which it is. They're handy because you can just see straight up how much a company pays. But like
yeah.
it's there's a lot more factors that are important than salary. And even just in terms of the actual cash value of your compensation, you've got to take into account the benefits as well.
Yeah.
And then that's not even taking into account stuff like how the company culture and how it is to work day to day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, salary is obviously huge. You don't want to get underpaid for the work that you're doing. Um, I guess it's one of those. It's always a toss up. I think if you're interested in working at a startup or a up and coming company anyway, you're probably going to have to accept that you might have to take a little bit of a hit in a salary, but to really sort of get stuck into the company and really make a stamp on the product that you're building. Um, but again, it just kind of comes down to that person. For me, salary, especially early in my career, salary wasn't a huge thing personally. Anyway, I wanted to join a small kind of, I guess, rapidly scaling company where I could really dive into the code base, actually start cranking out features, and then tangibly see them in the product, kind of the following week, essentially. and see that actual customers were using them, and I could kind of put my name to that feature. Whereas I always felt personally, and as a young dev, that I didn't particularly want to go down the sort of corporate route. Essentially, like I say, I was willing to sacrifice salary for this, like I say, a smaller team, cool product, and the ability to really sort of get stuck in and kind of get my hands dirty a little bit.
That's an interesting perspective because I definitely feel like there's a sweet spot to be had for your first couple of dev jobs, and a
Right.
lot of people listening to the show are either are trying to get their first dev job actually. And I think for me, I got made redundant very early on for my first dev job actually, and there were only four of us in the company, and part of me felt like it was almost a bit of a blessing in disguise for that to happen
Mm.
because it was such a small team. And then I joined a company where we had about 15 developers, but only three of us were front enders. So I learnt directly from two guys who were extremely experienced. And I felt like that was my sort of sweet spot where I could make meaningful contributions to the
Mm.
company's code base. But also as well without panicking because of the features I would have to deliver on, or the fact that
Yeah.
in the first job it was all entirely greenfield, and that's actually a dream for people like us now because we're more experienced. It's like, oh
Yeah.
great, I can write what I want. But when I'd barely learnt JavaScript that year, and I was trying to code up a whole new feature in React. It was a bit of a nightmare. I mean, do you
Yeah.
think there is a sweet spot people should look for?
Um, yeah, again, but it also comes down to appetite for risk, I think, as well. For me, I mean, naturally, I'm pretty risk averse. I wouldn't have kind of started a company myself if I wasn't. Um, yeah. Again, it's about having the freedom of choice ultimately.
Mm,
Again, it kind of comes back to what we push for on Haystack. We've got really small up and coming startups, pre-Series A stage, but then there are those kind of huge employers where you can bring in the big bucks, and they've got all the kind of cushy benefits there for you. And again, it depends very much on. It sometimes very much depends on the stage of career that you're in as well. Like I said, in my opinion, I always thought my early career was the time to take risks, and then when I'm in my 30s and stuff, that's kind of I don't know. Maybe I'll slow down a little bit then. Maybe
yeah.
not. Probably not actually.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, in terms of actually how you got into development in the first place, you took the fairly conventional route and you did a comp sci degree and everything like that. Like, what made you decide to apply for that straight in school? Because there's still not actually that many people doing it really on a macro level in the UK.
Yeah, there's even less women doing it as well. I
Yeah,
think
very true.
there's barely any even when I was at uni. Um, yeah, I mean, I was always interested in computers, to be honest. It just felt like the natural progression for me. It was the only thing I was interested in, to be honest. Like I would also be reading up on tech companies constantly. It's
Mm,
very cliche, but that was the big appeal for me. I would read, when you're young, you're reading like stuff about kind of celebrities and people that you look up to. Well, the people that I particularly looked up to were kind of all these tech entrepreneurs, and so it felt like the sort of natural progression for me. Um, and I actually really liked uni. I thought it was really good. It was a good opportunity to. I wouldn't necessarily say it was a great opportunity in terms of figuring out how to build and deploy actual sort of production ready products. Because I think the best way to do that is to really just dive in head first. And if you've got an idea, see if you can put pen to paper basically. Just start putting down lines of code and see how far you get. Um, but yeah, I guess it helped me build up this sort of fundamental understanding of what actually goes on behind the scenes, rather than just thinking about, I'm writing stuff in JavaScript, or I'm using React for this. You can kind of get a basic understanding. Um, but in no way, shape, or form do you need a computer science degree. Definitely not.
mm,
Um, I think some of the best developers I've met are essentially bedroom developers that have picked it up and as a hobby, basically. And like I say, and it's that sort of that initiative and that level of creativity to just dive in head first, and just a constant curiosity of, I've got an idea, can I build it? Basically, that's what I think produces the best developers.
yeah, that makes sense, and you definitely just learn by building. I mean, I don't know if you come across the indie hacking movement
Yeah, yeah,
much, but I'm super into it, and I discovered it last year, and I've been really into it ever since. And I'm building an app called Pinpoint at the moment, which is
right.
basically it's kind of not really been done before. I've been trying to search for it, which is either a great thing or a really worrying thing. I haven't decided either way, but it's supposed to be like your almost like your virtual PA for your job search, because
Right.
obviously it's very hard to make an objective decision
Mm,
on your job search. So I'm going to try and make it. It's I'm coding at the moment. It's a data driven approach to making objective decisions
yeah.
on your job search. So it's been an interesting experience because I'm just having to do a load of stuff that I've never really done before. And I'm mainly a front end developer, as the
Mm,
regular listeners will know. I've been having to get to grips with Superbase and learning SQL and stuff like
yeah.
that. And there have been days where I'm struggling over something that would be trivial
Yeah.
for a back end developer,
Yeah.
but now I know it, and that's the critical thing. So I totally
Mm,
agree. Just one of the best things to do is just build, regardless of where you are and what you're doing in life. If you've got the time, just try and
mm,
build something because you'll learn more. I mean, what I'd
yeah. Yeah.
say about the comp sci question is if someone came to me now and said, I want to go to uni to do comp sci, I'd say, well, make sure you maybe try and start some kind of business while you're in uni doing that, because there's no better time to try it kind of as a dummy run than uni,
Yeah.
really.
That's what I did. I had a couple of very small businesses when I was at uni. They basically paid for a few beers and stuff when I was there. It wasn't anything particularly big, but I was still I did stuff while I was there. I actually my my dissertation project was essentially a version of TaskRabbit. I don't know if you came across TaskRabbit before.
Yeah.
But I made it and then realized that there was another company called TaskRabbit operating in the US, and then all of a sudden they came to the UK. So yeah, it was called Odd Jobs, actually, my version of it. But yeah, near enough anyway. Um, but yeah, I completely agree. I think just get your head down. If you've got an idea, see if you can well, start cranking out lines of code basically, and I think you'll figure it out as you go. And if there's a natural curiosity there, that always helps as well. Um, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, there's an old saying: you either win or learn. And when it comes to creating software products, like learning to code is in the humblest way possible is a bit of a superpower in the way that you can launch a tech company with £0, right? If you already know how to code. And I actually gave a talk at BJSS in Glasgow last week about what developers can learn from Soldier Boy, who obviously came out with that hit song "Crank That," which I was Bluetooth many times on the back of the bus in 2007. And the reason why I talked about that was because he basically leveraged all the free music production tools he could find to create something that was going to be marketable. And then he leveraged free marketing tools to promote it on MySpace at the time.
Mm,
And it sounds kind of goofy, but he became like a world star basically, like overnight, through
yeah,
leveraging free tools. And developers can do the same thing. I mean, it got a good laugh in the audience. So I don't know,
yeah.
I don't know how much of a stretch it was, but yeah.
It's a good analogy, to be honest. I think you're exactly right. Um, yeah, I mean, build something, put it out there, see how people respond. But one thing I would say as well, when it does come to building the business, personally, when I first started out, I often had that it was kind of the age old analogy of build it and they will come. As though everybody, as soon as you put a product out, everybody's going to be bowled over by how good it is. Um, that wasn't the case. um, we had to graft very, very hard to get our first users and our first actual paying customers as well. So yes, there is. Yeah, there's a certain type of character who I think if you are looking to build a product and actually get a product into people's hands and get people using it, yes, you have to be a decent dev, but you also have to be a pretty good marketer as well, or at least
Yeah.
have some kind of marketing savvy. I think there's no such thing as stick it up on the app store and all of a sudden you're going to be discovered. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to have to kind of put yourself out there a little bit. So
And
yeah,
marketing is so much harder than people give it credit for, usually as devs. Like, marketing is something that I feel like I can sell and I feel like I can code, but marketing is I just don't understand any of it. My eternal respect goes to marketers because I can never make sense of any of it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those. It's just such a the lines are constantly blurred. To be honest, from what I can tell, there's also no silver bullet. Um, what might work for one business might not work, or could completely fail for another business. Um, so I think it's just one of those. As soon as you get something out there and into people's hands, it's just it's back to this kind of constant iterative learning process. Let's try one thing, see if we can get some users, see if we can get some actual paying customers. If that doesn't work, on to the next thing. Kind of move on quickly, and it goes back to that old sort of build, measure, learn. Basically, build the minimum that you can get away with. Don't think about all these crazy shiny features, because 9 times out of 10 nobody's going to give a shit. Basically,
Yeah.
build it, get it out there, get it into people's hands, talk to your customers, and figure out how they're using it, what they like, what they don't like, and then the next time around it'll be slightly better.
Yeah, I mean, as Reid Hoffman said, if you're not embarrassed by your MVP, you've launched too late.
Oh god, ours was terrible. Yeah.
I mean, how was that process like? What did you build the first version of Haystack with? Like, what challenges did you have?
Yeah, ours has always been React Native. The mobile app's all built in React Native. Um, what challenges we have? Well, a lot, to be honest. So I initially, before starting Haystack, so I had a company of my own by myself. So my two co-founders, Chris and Rob, came on a little bit later. But I was kind of part of an accelerator program up here in Newcastle. It was a similar idea to Haystack, but I basically had no money, no funding, and kind of essentially yeah, not enough capital behind me to really make a dent, I would say. Um, so before I went out to anybody, any kind of investors or anything, and before I basically spent hours and hours putting down lines of code, um, I wanted to basically validate the idea and see if anybody would actually use it first. So all I did was just spin up a landing page, start a newsletter, and basically just started talking crap about interest and opportunities, and see if I could get some signups from it. It was like, well, what startups are doing cool things in Newcastle, Manchester, Leeds? What are the cool dev opportunities going? And in the end, I just ended up having a few thousand signups on a newsletter that was broadly around the topic that I was interested in, which is uncovering cool opportunities in the tech scene. And I thought, right, okay, I can get a few thousand signups basically for free on a newsletter. I would imagine I'll probably be able to do it on an app. And if I had some cash behind it, I could probably light a fire under it, basically. And that was literally enough for me to start going out there and speaking to investors who also kind of had basically the same idea as me. To be honest, the whole process was, I was very lucky to meet the people that I did. So our first investor, he just exited a SaaS business, had seen the problems, but from the employer side. My two co-founders were working with my first investor to sort of build a very similar product. And then naturally, we just all sort of came together. And I guess kind of the rest is history there. But yeah, I mean, if you look back at how the product evolved, like I say, it pretty much started from a newsletter, basically. And then it was a case of, right, we've got a newsletter. What would happen if we turned on some ads and see if we can get some signups to the landing page? Okay, we can get some signups for some ads. I would imagine it'll be even better if we put a mobile app there.
React Native is an interesting choice for the tech stack, but a very powerful one. What made you? I guess I probably kind of know the answer, but what made you choose React Native, and would you recommend it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was we wanted iOS and Android, basically. Would I recommend it? Yes, because we were strapped for cash. To be honest, I think if we had massive amounts of funding from day one and knew exactly the kind of product that we wanted to build, I think we would probably go we'd probably go full native, I would say. I guess React Native technically is native. I don't know enough about it to even make a comment on it nowadays. But but yeah, like a fully native kind of Swift or Java, either iOS plus an Android app. You know what I mean? Rather than one uniform code base. Um, you just get more flexibility and more ability to actually build quirky, interesting UI, UX tweaks and things. I think it was probably a good choice, to be honest, because, like I said, it allowed us to basically get it out on two platforms rather than just the one. And if you look at our user base now, it's pretty much split 50-50. So we would have split the total addressable audience in half. So I think it was a good move. The only challenge with mobile apps, I mean, this is mobile apps across the board, is the release cycles are pretty painful. And this is mobile apps across the board. It's you're pretty much you're pretty much on Apple's timeline, whether you like it or not. It gets better over time as they start to trust you as a developer and a publisher on the App Store. But yeah, the first few releases were pretty painful.
Yeah, I guess it's good in a way that Apple is so strict, but also really annoying if you're a legitimate entrepreneur actually trying
Yeah,
to release early
well,
versions of your product.
it's one of those as well where you put something out and you miss a bug and you see it in production.
Oh,
It's not like
yeah.
you can just do a very quick hot fix. It's like, oh god, I'm gonna have to wait 2 weeks to fix this now. Uh,
Yeah.
it's like,
See, that's why I do web.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, we are planning to go web very soon as well,
Yeah.
so we'll have the mobile app and the website of things. The mobile app is in a super good place now. It's really steady and um, not too many bugs. There's probably, I would imagine, there's a few listeners that could find some bugs in there, but um, I think
Don't challenge them because they'll try.
yeah. Well, that's the other good thing. That's why I actually really like building products for devs and tech people. It's like not only will they'll let you know about the bugs, but they're also willing to put up with bugs because they've been there, done that, kind of got the t-shirt essentially, which is like everybody. If you talk to like your parents, everybody just assumes you're going to spit out an app that's on par with Uber, and
Yeah.
it's in the real world that's just not how it works. And I think us as devs understand that, which is another reason why you can get something out that hasn't got all the kind of shiny nuts and bolts to it, but people are willing to sort of put up with the quirks. And like I said, you can get that sort of drastic feedback from our audience, which is again, we're really tapped into the Haystack community, and pretty much, 99% of the feature ideas come from them. To be honest, we'll occasionally have
That's
a little
really
bit of
cool.
moment, but yeah, most people are just telling us the direction that they want us to head in.
Yeah, that's the best way to be. And I guess a lot of devs would agree with me when I say that I actually kind of feel like I've found like an Easter egg if I
Yeah,
break a website or app accidentally. I'm always
yeah,
strangely proud of myself, and it's actually
yeah,
quite
yeah.
exciting. It doesn't really annoy me.
Yeah, no, we love it. To be honest, if somebody flags it up, it's like great, we'll get that one in because we probably missed it. Um, and yeah, people love to give brutally honest feedback, which is like we always like a bit of brutally honest feedback.
Yeah, I finished Peter Levels' book this week actually, and he said the first thing he adds to any of his applications that he builds is a like chat box.
Right?
And he said it's just how he gets all his feature ideas, all his bug fixes, are just
Yeah,
entirely through there. And he said just you end up getting more engaged users if you immediately fix issues that they report on or immediately address features that they suggest, and people will become more engaged in your project going forward.
yeah, we did exactly the same with the app, which is you don't really see it very often, to be honest. In the little chat, one of the tabs is a chat tab, and it's basically a direct line to us. It's like you could literally message me or Jack, who's our community manager, um, give us a bit of feedback or just spitball some ideas, and we'll pretty much get back to you kind of within a minute or so. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, that's really
we
cool.
kind of we like to keep it like that. It should feel like we are still very much at startup stage. There's only 20 or so of us in the company. So you've pretty much got a direct line to one of the founders. If you think something's really bad, like just flag it up in the app. To be honest, and it will literally be discussed the following week in the product alignment sessions.
And how's it been going from being technically focused to more being on the commercial and operation side, even though, as you said, you're still doing a bit of code?
To be honest, I always feel like I think it's helped in a way. It's one of those where I can kind of apply the same sort of logic and thinking to how I would start to build out a code base to building out kind of the operations side of the business. Ultimately, it's all just numbers and that's kind of, I guess, percentages here and there. Um, Lots of if statements everywhere. It's just it's all kind of the same. Um, and like I said, I think it's actually helped just that kind of critical thinking sense. Um, and yeah, I do still like the coding side of things. To be honest, I actually do it still as a hobby. Just to, again, if I've got an idea, I'll spin something up and just start playing with it, basically. Um, but yeah, and I think that one of the reasons why I have moved slightly more away from it is, like I said, it's a needs must, really. You know, kind of my job is to grow Haystack at this point. Um, the ultimate goal is to drive the company forward, and we've got a pretty grand mission and vision, and um, I don't think I would be doing it justice if I was just necessarily sat kind of cranking out lines of code. I think I kind of have to be banging the drum a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I definitely think as well as companies grow, it's only natural that even if you are a technical kind of founder, that you're going to end up stepping away from the code. I think every tech company that I've worked in, it's very rare that a technical founder, no matter how much they know how to code, that they're coding every day.
Yeah,
Yeah, in fact, actually, I can't think of a single company that I've worked for where it's been that case, even when I was a tech recruiter, even now as a
yeah,
software engineer. So, yeah, I totally get that. And I mean, you talked about the kind of grand plan. I mean, my first question would be, what is the grand plan? What do you see as the future of Haystack, and what's exciting you? What's the vision?
yeah. Well, first thing is we're not just focused on the UK market. Um, at the minute, we are. This is kind of where we cut our teeth, but it's pretty much a global problem. Um, I mean, the US is exactly the same as the UK, but just 10 times bigger, basically. Um, so naturally, we see ourselves progressing into new markets pretty quickly. To be honest, we've already we're already starting to eye it up. I think I know you've worked in the space before. Um, our solution is 100% a tech solution as well. That's the thing. It's not like we're trying to scale a recruitment agency where
Mm,
you need boots on the ground, people picking up phones and pestering developers. Um, we genuinely are building the community. Like, people sign up to Haystack because they want to use Haystack and they know that they're not going to get pestered by us. Um, that's super scalable. We could literally launch in the US. Again, you need more cash behind it, but we could launch in the US with the same product that we've got. Kind of load everything up, and I think we could start acquiring users pretty much overnight. So it's not to say we haven't got the same challenges as, like I say, what a recruitment agent would have. So it's massively scalable. Um, and yeah, like I said, our sites are pretty much set on overseas now.
yeah, and that's the incredibly exciting thing about working in technology is just the fact that our solutions are just so scalable compared to everything else. And
Yeah,
yeah, I think that's what excites me about this industry more than anything else.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's really cool to hear about how you want to expand beyond the UK. I'm excited to see it.
yeah. Like I said, that is the kind of natural stepping stone. I think. Um, you know the UK has always been, like I said, we started in the northeast initially,
Hmm.
um, but the way everything went with COVID and lockdown and stuff, it allowed us actually to move really really quickly. Um, all of a sudden, everything went remote. So our initial kind of, um, I guess, go to market strategy was almost city by city. So Newcastle, Manchester, Birmingham, London, etc. But everybody pretty much went remote overnight, and it kind of stayed that way. So it just meant that, right, we no longer just need to launch in Newcastle and Manchester. We can launch in the entire UK within the space of a week. um, and it's kind of proved well. It's paid off, I would say.
Yeah, I think one real interesting thing that's come out of the everyone going remote is the fact that regional well, basically every tech scene outside of London, I think,
Yeah.
has now seen a boost. Like up
Mm,
here in Edinburgh and over in Glasgow, I mean, the way it is because Edinburgh and Glasgow are so physically close, even though they're very different cities,
yeah.
um, our kind of tech scenes basically intertwine. And since we've come out of COVID and the restrictions, it's been really buzzing up here, and I imagine it's pretty similar down in Newcastle. Like it's really it feels like a really exciting time now that
Yeah.
people are leaving London and going to other cities.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just again, it's one of those. It's sort of level the playing field for everybody now. Like you don't just have to move to London if you want to get a decent salary, or you kind of don't really have to put up with all the crap that came with living in London as well if you don't want
Yeah,
to. You obviously some people really like living in London, but some people don't. And it just means that again, you're actually being valued on the skill set that you have rather than the fact that you have a London postcode.
yeah, exactly. I think if COVID made me realize one thing, it's that I like visiting London every 6 weeks, but I don't like
Yeah,
living there.
yeah, yeah. It's not bad every once in a while. Maybe go as a tourist and stuff, but yeah, I always feel like I leave London more tired than I went in.
Oh yeah, definitely the way. It's very intense and very expensive. It always shocks me. Like literally go down for work, get my plane or my train paid for, but then the amount of money I'm still able to somehow spend.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, the way everything's gone, it means that you can work for the really cool sort of up and coming startups or established scale ups in London, but from where you actually want to live, which I think is a you know a very good thing, to be honest.
Yeah,
And it also means for companies, it's you don't just have to worry about if you did want to build a company in Newcastle or Edinburgh or even a smaller tech hub like I don't know, let's say Durham, for instance, in the northeast, is a really really small city. If you did want to build a tech startup there, you have access to talent from literally across the UK. It's not just you don't just have to look on your doorstep, um, which, in my opinion, is a massively positive thing.
mm. Would you say you have an overall positive view of the future of the UK tech market in that respect? Then,
100%, definitely. Yep, definitely. I think the UK tech market is the dominant force in the European tech market at the minute, and I can't see it slowing down. Um, it's one thing I would say is all the cash does seem to go to London. um, I think we, especially in the north, we don't particularly see a huge amount of investment. To be honest, it all seems to just pool towards the south. Um, but that being said, I can't see it slowing down. To be honest.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's funny though. I often wonder like if I was setting up a business and I was fundraising, whether I would get a better deal and higher valuation if I just rented a like one desk office in London, claimed that was HQ, and just worked from Scotland. Like whether I'd end up
Probably.
getting a higher valuation.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think it's one of those you rub shoulders with.
Yeah,
Um, that's yeah. It's just a higher concentration, so you've got a better chance. I think down there,
yeah.
there's more people to speak to, more firms to speak to. I think if you're up in the provinces, so to speak, like where I am, um, it's just a much smaller market, basically.
Yeah, that could be a good thing equally though, because I feel like sometimes you end up getting hotbeds in a smaller market where suddenly a load of very innovative businesses come out. Like I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to think off the top of my head now what happened in Edinburgh in the mid 2000s, but Skyscanner was the big dog out of all of them.
yeah.
But then an even better example, because it's a smaller city, is Dundee. The amount of
Mhm.
amazing game studios that came out of Dundee so quickly. Like if you
Yeah.
end up having a few very smart people, I'm not including myself in that equation, a few very smart people in one location, then you can have some really exciting things coming out of it, even if it's not like quote unquote a major city.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen that in Newcastle as well. I mean, we've got Sage up here, which is one of the biggest
Oh yeah, of course.
players ever in the UK. Absolute behemoth. But yeah, Sky's kind of a great example of a Scottish tech startup. Well, no longer a startup, obviously, but yeah, it's a Scottish tech company. They're actually one of our customers. It's they're yeah, they've got an unbelievable product, unbelievable team, unbelievable brand, um, and it's pretty much they are pretty much championing the Scottish tech scene, I would say. But
Yeah.
yeah, I completely agree. If you get a lot of smart people in a room, interesting, great things happen. Basically, there's kind of there's nothing else for it really.
Yeah, these effects do seem to compound, and I think it's exciting. I think there's a lot there's a lot of exciting stuff going on in the UK, and I think we seem to be coming out of COVID pretty positively, and
Mm.
the US market seems to be hit pretty badly, and I've seen quite a bit. The German market's been hit pretty badly, but actually the UK seems to be relatively healthy in general. Obviously, there has been some layoffs and that sort of thing. I think
Yeah,
we're still looking pretty stable.
yeah. I mean, the world's got to keep turning.
Yeah,
That's one thing that everybody quickly realized. I think during COVID, um, we've got to still keep making things. Everybody's still got to work. Everybody's still got to contribute. Um, things just can't all of a sudden come to a halt. Um, so yeah, I think again, it's one of those where obviously the big tech layoffs and stuff are going to be the things in the headline. But what you don't see in the headlines is actually there's some great companies still growing extremely quickly, and
yeah,
companies still absolutely flying. So yes, there might be Amazon and Facebook who would dominate the headlines, but we personally as a jobs platform, obviously we've got a lot of jobs on Haystack. Ours have actually grown. I think we did something like quadruple the amount of jobs that we did this month, compared to like 6 months ago when everything was apparently sweet. So we haven't felt it particularly, and it probably is because we're not massively over indexed by huge tech companies. To be honest, we've got a full kind of the full breadth from up and coming startups all the way through to enterprise companies. But like I said, I think everybody can be, obviously everybody, it shocks everybody about these big headlines, but actually I think if you look beneath the surface and see what's actually going on, people are still going to work. People are still plugging away. There's still a lot of growth happening in the tech sector. Um,
mm.
so it's not all doom and gloom, I'd say.
And those FANG engineers, they're not going to quit coding. They're going to go somewhere. So they're either going to go to a high growth
Exactly.
startup, or they're going
Yeah.
to start their own thing. So how exciting is that? Like,
Yeah.
really, it's kind of the circle of life, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think, yeah. I mean, what I heard anyway was, I don't know if it's the case over here, but a lot of I know it happens quite a lot in Silicon Valley. If there is a big kind of surge of layoffs in a big company, another company with bigger coffers who is more recession proof will basically just come up and snap up all of the talent anyway. Um,
Yeah.
so again, it comes back to, is your skill set in demand? Yes, very much so. Okay, I think everything will be fine.
Yeah, and then at that point, you just got to remember to roll with the punches and make sure that
Yeah,
your skills aren't getting too stale. And then that's just a simple case of just doing something like checking the Haystack app to find out who's got the most popular
that's
tech
a good
stacks and that
plug.
kind of thing.
Yeah, good plug there. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's rose tinted glasses and all that perspective, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it'll all be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'll all be fine unless Chat GPT comes to write all our code for us. But the code
Yeah,
that's written
well,
me is a bit dodgy, so I'm not too worried.
speaking of, I would be if I was Stack Overflow, I would be sweating a little bit.
Well, they
Um,
banned it.
yeah, so I've heard. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've heard. I mean, I don't know how they banned it. Yeah.
So you
Okay.
can test now if an answer was generated by it. There's this
Oh, really? All right.
Canadian PhD student. Yeah, he came up with a way, which is like the ultimate grass, really, because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
found it as a way to see if people were cheating on assignments. And
Right.
I tell you what, if I'd been in school when this had come out, you can believe that
Yeah,
everything would have been written using ChatGPT for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, it is ridiculously good. To be fair, it is insanely good. I literally use it every day now, just for writing ridiculous poems about my co-founder to bits of copy and stuff. It's like, yeah.
That is the best use for it. It's bits of copy because,
Yeah,
and hopefully it's not too obvious to listeners. Most of my episode descriptions, I will pop in a transcription of the episode and say, like, so for example, for this, my prompt will be, can you generate an episode description for the Coder Career where Cameron and Mike do this interview, and then I'll copy and paste our transcription, and then it will maybe take 30 seconds, but it will generate me like an SEO friendly, like really
yeah,
good episode description. It's way better than anything I could write.
yeah. I've found that literally, if you feed it enough info, it'll actually spit out something that's very, very impressive. The challenge is just feeding it the right kind of info.
Yeah.
I think.
And that's the
I,
new job. It's going to be a chat GPT operator.
I'm very interested to see where that whole thing goes. I mean, a lot of people are. I've pretty much jumped on the bandwagon, to be honest. Um, but yeah, I think there's some insane stuff going to be coming out of that. I think. Again, I think some professions which you can kind of see immediate applications for. It's like law. If reading through crazy contracts and stuff, it's like surely there has to be an application for that somewhere. Um, like copywriting is another one that obviously we've already touched on. There's so much like SEO writing, like the applications are just endless at the minute.
Yeah. So something interesting about it though, I've been trying to get it to write regular expressions for me, and it crashes it each time. So I
Does
don't
it?
know
All
what
right.
that's all about. Yeah, I've
Think that,
tried it 4 different times. Tried it on a rival version. Tried it on, I think it's called Jasper AI. I tried it on that, crashed it as
yeah,
well. I don't know.
yeah,
It wasn't a hard one. I was just like, can you give me the JavaScript regular expression to only allow email addresses? Because I was just
yeah,
trying to do it for a TikTok. I was like trying to do a little series on like what you can actually use ChatGPT for as a software engineer,
yeah.
but I keep crashing the thing, and then it banned me for 24 hours.
Did
So
it? All right.
yeah, I don't know why I hate regular expressions so much.
Yeah, you think regex is one of the like kind of simpler ones. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, oh, well, that's strange. I'm sure they'll probably come up with a crazy update that all of a sudden there's their absolute wizard in regex.
Yeah,
Um,
I hope so. I just hope it doesn't become a complete wizard at React. Otherwise, yeah,
yeah,
I may be replaced by some bloke just typing
well,
out commands.
I mean, I was talking about this in the office. We were talking about this in the office. In my opinion, I don't think we're going to see people immediately replaced, but I think we're going to see people replaced by people who are proficient at using it.
Mm, yeah,
Um,
AI won't take a job, but someone using it will.
yeah, pretty much. That's kind of I think that's my take on it anyway. For what it's
Yeah,
worth. Yeah,
yeah. I think it's the most realistic way forward because like people would. I can imagine it's like someone refusing to use Git or something like that. It's like unimaginable now. But
yeah,
I mean, I guess both of us started our careers way too late to see people who wouldn't use Git. But I imagine there are probably people around that wouldn't, or
yeah, yeah,
people that
yeah,
refuse to abandon Flash and stuff like that. You know, stuff moves on.
yeah, yeah. The good old days.
Cool. So, if people want to find out more about Haystack, what's the best way to what's the best way to find out more? You said it's on the app stores, right?
Yep, yeah. So we're on App Store and Play Store, so you should be able to find us if you just search for Haystack. Website is haystackapp.io. We need to drop the app in there. I think everybody gets confused. So at some point it'll change, hopefully, to haystack.io, but we'll see. Yeah, so haystackapp.io. And then people want to find me on LinkedIn, just Mike Davies.
Brilliant. Link to that will be in the description. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Mike. It was a really interesting chat, and best of luck with everything with Haystack. It looks really exciting.
Good stuff. All right, cheers, Cam.